Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. We're going to continue on with my Scottish Beer Month of beer reviews, so this is video number 3 in that series, and we're going to go to a brewery who I hadn't even heard of until quite recently when they appeared in the Aldi Scottish Beer Festival range. So we're going to go to the little village of Kinlochleven, which is on the West Highland Way, a very famous part of Scotland, and we're going to go to River Leven Ales and have a taste of their blonde beer. Now there are only three beers that come out of this brewery. That's the dark, the IPA and the blonde one here, but I will be adding to my reviews from these guys in the future when I get back from Australia. But as always, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. It's very short for this one, but if you don't want to stick with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes into the video and you'll go straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with the link that will take you to my future River Leven Ales reviews. So anyway, this brewery was founded back in 2011 by Harry Heskey, and it's one of the many small independent breweries in Scotland these days. I think there's about 50 craft breweries in Scotland at the moment. But the brewing premises that they have for this brewery, that is the building that once housed the Atlas Brewery, who have now merged with the Orkney Brewery. You'll remember that if you've been subscribed to my channel for a little while. I've done quite a few reviews from the Orkney Brewery so far. But the brewery is located in the small village of Kinlochleven, and the building is said to be a proud monument to the industrial history of the town. It was placed in the possession of the Kinlochleven Community Trust and has now been entrusted to River Leven Ales, who hope to look after it and help grow the local economy by making it a successful business. But Harry has apparently brewed many different styles of beer, both as a home brewer and as a professional, but the brewery does only produce 3 different types of beer, as I mentioned to you at the start, and that's the idea behind that, is to maintain a steady supply and a sort of good range of flavour within their range of beers, if that makes sense. But all of the beers are brewed using traditional methods and the superb Kinlochleven water. It's meant to be one of the purest in the country apparently, but no sugar or unmalted grains are used in any of the brews that you will get from River Leven Ale. So a very kind of pure and organic brewery, if that makes sense. So we'll get on to the tasting of this guy now. And I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. It is quite nicely presented actually. I'll just wipe off a little bit of the condensation there. You can see it's got the nice kind of typical rolling Scottish hills and a sort of loch at the front of it there. But it's nicely presented, this one. It has a little bit on the side where it tells you about the beer. It says River Leven Blonde is brewed following traditional methods using only top quality ingredients, not least of which is our superb Kinlochleven water, which is both plentiful and pure. There is no sugar or unmalted grain used in any River Leven recipe, and it has the address on the side of it, which is River Leven Ales, Lab Road, Kinlochleven, Argyll, Scotland. So it's very nicely presented. This one is a half-litre bottle, in case you're wondering. It's a plain bottle cap as well. So we'll get this guy out and get on with the tasting. As you would expect, it's a blonde ale, this one. The malt profile on this one is that it uses Maris Otter, pale malt and also malted wheat, and it has a special hop blend, but the website didn't say what exactly went into this beer in terms of hops, but it's 4% on the Richter scale. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. Quite interested to try this one because I've never tried anything from them before. As you can see, a nice smoky opening there. Quite a bit of smoke coming out of this one actually. So we'll get it poured and into the glass. Oh, a lot of carbonation going to come out of this guy, so we'll just let it settle a little bit. Hopefully, yep, that's just going to be the initial bit. As long as I'm careful with the pour, it will be alright. As I always do with beers that do this, we'll just leave a little bit of room and we'll have a look at the colour and the aroma before we go back to it then. So, as you can see, this beer's poured with a massive head. I'm not sure if that's just because of how quickly I opened it there, but as you can see, it's a pale golden colour there. You can see right through it, very transparent. If I put my fingers behind it, you've got a solid kind of 2-finger and a bit of a white head there. Very kind of bumpy head actually, not much of a frothy one. I've got about half of the beer in, but there's a lot of carbonation in this one, and that's maybe why you've got such a big head on it. You can just see little particles of sediment actually floating around in this one, and it actually does smell very, very fresh. So we'll sugar it around and get a little bit of the aroma. But it smells very sort of bready. It's got a little bit of a toasted bready malt element to it, but it does have a lot of a kind of butterscotch smell to it as well. So you've got it's probably a nice kind of biscuity malt base that's in this one. A nice kind of mix of butterscotch and caramel, and a little bit of toasted bread, but there is quite a bit of citrusy and grassy aromas coming out too. They're probably the most prominent component of the aroma. but you do get the malts. If you sugar it up like this, you do get a little bit of the malt coming out. It almost smells as if it has a little bit of banana about it as well. It almost has a little bit of Hefeweizen character to it, which is quite unusual for a kind of, obviously for a kind of blonde ale or golden ale. But I would say it does have quite a yeasty smell to it, this one, which is quite unusual. But there's a lot of grassy and citric element to it. That's the main component. But there is a nice kind of a sort of caramel and sort of citricy taste to this one. So we'll just try and get the rest of it out, and then we'll get on with the tasting here. A really quite interesting aroma on this one. Just need to watch that the head on this one doesn't go too crazy. See if I can get it all out, and then we'll get right on with the tasting. It's pouring like a German beer, so I'll just leave the last little bit then and we'll get on with the tasting. It's poured like a nice German beer, the typical kind of convex head. So this is my first beer from Leven Ales, so we'll give it a taste and see how we get on. Cheers! Big bit of head there, so we'll carry on. It's actually got a nice big bit of hoppy bitterness, this one. Yeah, there's a huge chunk of kind of grassy and aromatic character that comes out with this. It attacks the tongue, the front of the tongue, right away. It is quite highly carbonated, which is what I thought just by taking a little look at it. But it's a very interesting beer, and for a brewery, that isn't quite so well known, it is a very, very hoppy beer, and I can see this brewery actually growing very fast when they're producing beers like this. But let's get on with the tasting once more. The only thing they need to watch, I think, with their bottle conditioning is that you don't get that. I'm not sure if that's my fault or if that's just the way it's conditioned, because that is quite a random thing when you get a beer that pours with as much head as that, actually. But yeah, we'd stick by that assessment of the beer. There's a hell of a lot of kind of floral and aromatic and citrusy, grassy character coming out of this one. I'd be interested to know whether they consider themselves quite a kind of hop-forward brewery, because it certainly does have a hell of a lot of that character in it. It does have a kind of underlying of quite a kind of bready and yeasty malt base in there, and that comes out a little bit in the aftertaste. Just at the back of the tongue, you're getting these kind of really nice bready and yeasty character. It almost has a little bit of Hefeweizen character to it, and I suppose that's what you would expect when they're using wheat in the malt base. But yeah, I mean, definitely it kind of follows the aroma quite well, actually. You've got a nice bready and yeasty malt base there. The first taste of this beer really is an attack. It's a sort of grassy, aromatic, citrusy attack on the edge of the tongue, and that it has that really nice bitter character that just lingers around the edge of the tongue there. But in the middle, you're getting a little bit of the kind of banana-y wheat flavours that you expect, just sitting there around the edges of the tongue. Going up the middle, you've got a little tiny bit of caramel in there, I think. But overall, the most prominent component of this beer is definitely the citrus and aromatic, grassy character that comes out of it. But the yeast, the sort of banana flavoured yeast, I think, is quite prominent as well, and the wheat flavours are quite prominent. It does have a little bit of spicy character from the wheat, but that blends very well in with the kind of with the sort of hoppy flavours that you get from the different hops in there. I'd really be interested to know what hops they used in this one. They should add that to their website. But overall, this one is a really kind of interesting mix of things. I would say it does mellow out a little bit as you take more and more sips of it. It comes in when you first taste it as a very kind of hoppy and a beer with a good bit of bite, but then it sort of smooths out and becomes a kind of more well balanced one, if that makes sense. It becomes a little less hop forward, and you do get the kind of bready yeast character coming out just a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, this is a really, really nice golden ale. I mean, it's got everything you would expect. A nice little bit of bready yeasty character. Then the hop character in this one is what really stands out. It's got this really nice, fresh, grassy, aromatic character. And what's interesting is that it does have a few elements of Hefeweizen taste in it as well. I'm not sure whether that's kind of intended or if that's just my perception of it, but and some beers I've seen where they do actually use wheat, it's a lot less prominent in the malt base. They can, obviously you can amp it up if you want to, but for a blonde ale and a golden ale, in my experience, it is quite unusual, if you like, for them to have, for the wheat to have such a prominent flavour. So it's very interesting in that regard. But it's a really interesting one to try this, and it's from a very, very small brewery. But yeah, I would stick with that. It does mellow out, you get more of the kind of wheaty and bready flavours, and it's complemented by that really nice kind of hop profile that they've put into it. As I say, I'd really like to know what it is, but it wasn't on the brewery website. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. We'll just, at the mouth of this one, I would describe this as being quite a light kind of mid-bodied beer, this one. I was forgetting that I had to still talk about the mouthfeel of this one. It's quite a light mid-bodied beer. It's got a good high carbonation to it, actually, as you saw with the head that it poured with. It's got a slightly creamy texture at the same time, and that complements the kind of wheat character and the yeasty character quite well. But it is balanced by quite a nice dry and grassy feel, and that sticks around the edges of the tongue, but it does spread in towards the middle of the palate, so it's very, very nice. The mouthfeel of it is perfect for the kind of flavours that you do get out the beer. So I mean, overall, this is a really interesting and quite sessionable blonde ale that comes out of a brewery who are probably quite little known, actually, even within Scotland. So it's cool to see that even the really, really small breweries are producing some really good ales like this. I'd love to try this one on tap and just see how it comes out. Normally the kind of malt base comes out just a little bit softer and sweeter and things, so it would be really interesting to see what it's like on tap. So hopefully I'll find it one time. But overall, this is a really, really nice kind of sessionable golden ale, quite different because of the wheat presence from the ones I've tried before. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Check out Leven Ales. They seem to have produced a very, very nice golden ale here. I hope you've enjoyed the review, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know in the comments section if you do happen to have tried this beer yourself. Always interesting to hear from my viewers on that count. But check them out, and I hope you've enjoyed the review, and I will continue on with my Scottish Beer Month tomorrow. You'll see the next review in the coming days. Cheers!